All right, welcome back, everybody. It's another Funded Fridays. You're tuned in to Trader Roundup, where highly attuned, like-minded traders come together to become 1% better each and every day. And my name is JCapFX, and I have another special guest, one of my good friends that I met in Miami recently. You might have seen him on his interviews, you might have seen his reels, but this guy's been on fire lately. I want to introduce my good buddy, Umar or UmzieFX. What's going on, brother?
Hey Carl, thanks for having me, man. All good over here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How about yourself? I know you've been traveling a good amount. You just got back to UK, right? Not too
Yeah,
long ago.
yeah, just trying to get back to reality, to be honest. Been a crazy few weeks, as you know yourself, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, been non-stop, but we keep going.
yeah. So a couple weeks ago, I got to meet you for the first time. We met at the cigar lounge, and when you came in, I think I introduced myself to you, and I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like, I didn't even realize it was you because you didn't have a whole bunch of pictures of you online, right? So when I saw you, I was like, I don't even know who this guy is, but uh, yeah, I think it just hit me after a while. I was like, "Oh my god, like I'm such an idiot."
Yeah, I didn't actually know that, but thanks for telling me now. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's inevitable anyway that we're gonna meet. So, and we did. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we got to talk a whole bunch, and I got to know you a whole lot over that weekend. If people don't know who you are, I wanted to give people just a quick intro, how you got into trading and how you got into funding specifically.
Yeah, so I guess like me in a nutshell, right? So I started trading just about over 3 years ago. I never really took it, let's say, full time and serious in the beginning. But what actually got me into trading was that one of my good friends, till this day, he was making a shit ton of money, right? And I was there working my 9 to 5. I literally just started my career in technology after doing my master's degree, right? And when I saw the money he was making, I was just like, either this is too good to be true, or I need to jump on this ship as well, right? And then yeah, just gradually from there, I just took it from there, started, and then just kept building. Of course, a lot of hardships along the way, and even till this day, as you know,
Hmm.
we go through hardships, right? It's just part of the process. And I just fell in love with the game, to be honest, and sort of grew a passion for this industry, and that's where we're at.
So did he this friend, I guess, is he the one that kind of mentored you? Like, do you trade similar style or no?
No, so honestly, I have no idea how he trades. When I first started out, I did obviously try and get some help from him, but I quickly realized that yeah, ain't no one gonna help you to actually trade because you have to have your own understanding of how to trade and your own sort of way because your characteristics make up the way you trade. And of course, we're similar in certain ways, but we're also different. So his tendencies were a bit different to mine, especially with him being in the game for a few years already. He's already way ahead. So to be able to like baby someone, let's call it that, right? It's very difficult to do that. You have to have patience. You have to have a lot of time. And he's a busy guy. So for me personally, the way I am is like, no, I need to do something myself. I don't rely on anybody. So let's just get to it and just stuck in the deep end, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what I kind of noticed too is because back in the day, I used to follow a whole bunch of traders, and I used to try and copy exactly what they were doing. But even if they're giving you the best signals, right? As soon as you take that trade, your whole game plan just goes out the window. And in my
100%.
opinion, I think if a lot of people are trying to mimic other traders, it doesn't really work out for them because it doesn't it might not fit your personality. It just, there's no way that I can transfer the emotions that I feel when I take a trade. So if you're following somebody else, you don't really know what they're looking at or how they're feeling in that specific trade. So you trying to mimic that is like almost impossible. So, like, what was your biggest learning curve? Was that kind of just learning on your own, or do you try and mimic other traders, kind of one for one?
Yeah, I think so. You know how you mentioned that there's people online that show a certain way of how they trade. Most
Hmm.
people don't actually trade the way they show online. It's more of just like a public perception of, oh yeah, I put 50 lots on EU and let's go. Like, no, it's the reality is behind the scenes, you don't know what that person's really doing. And
Exactly.
also you don't even know if they're a real trader. Let's just get that straight as well, right? But for me, it was more of trial and error. So I failed a lot, to really understand, okay, so what am I doing wrong? And what do I need to stop looking at? And what do I need to start looking at more? So how my journey really began in terms of me to start understanding the markets a lot better was just going back to basics. You know,
Mhm.
and people might think that like, oh, you're going back to basics. What do you mean? But it's like literally, you need to keep your trading as simple as possible. So if you don't have the fundamentals in place of the basic foundation of trading, how do you expect to actually make any money for like long term, for longevity? You know,
Yeah.
uh, so that's sort of where my progress started to really excel.
Yeah, so like, I think at least when I hear that you've only been training for 3 years, I find it pretty great that you're seeing the success that you're having right now. Like, and when we talked and we had, brunch, like you had mentioned that you're just a straight up geek, like you're a nerd. So do you nerd out over the education side of trading? Because I know, I'm sure doing a master's, I think in what software engineering
Yeah,
is
like
that correct?
computing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure doing that is probably, I would say, maybe even harder than learning how to trade. Did you kind of nerd out over trading in the same manner?
I mean, it's really hard to answer that properly because, like, you go to university for who goes to university. I mean, you study. It's a different thing than when you're studying trading, right? Because when you're studying for education, when it comes to university, you're just learning academic sort of skills and knowledgeable, things there. But when it comes to trading, you're messed up. You're in different zones. You're in different emotions throughout the whole journey till this day. Not one trader can say they don't wake up and on a different day have different emotions.
I mean,
It's just not.
I think that applies to just education in general, right? Because I actually talked with a good friend who was, he majored in accounting, but when he got into the real world, everything that he learned in school was just it. You couldn't apply to the real world. So, like, I think the theory of how accounting should work and then the actual execution of it in the business world is way different. And I think it's the same for trading. Like the
Yeah,
theory
no,
of
no,
it
fact,
is
fact.
easy, but when it comes to executing, it's like it's like shark infested waters essentially.
Yeah, no, you're spot on in that regard. It's just that you see when you're studying, you learn theoretical things, right? As you said, and then when you go to work. So when I worked in my first company, I didn't know anything when I was working. I had to learn on the job. So yes, it's very similar in trading in that regard. But what I mean is that in terms of the daily emotions you have with trading, you're not gonna have that with depending on what job it is, right? Like I was in tech, so I wouldn't get stressed out as much as I'd get stressed out with trading, right? With tech, I'd be like, oh, why is this not working? Okay, let me make it work. And it was a very quick fix, or someone would help you. Whereas with trading, if you're struggling with something, no one can just quick fix and help you straight away and be like, yeah, that's what you need to do. And then the next day you make 100 grand. Like it don't work that way, right?
The hardest part about trading, I mean, it is like an entrepreneurial mindset because it is one of the one fields where you can go into the day and come out of the day with less money than you started with. Right. So learning how to accept losses on the day is it's so hard. And I think I struggle with it too at times where I'll take a loss early in the morning. I think I got in too early and, and then I trade again when I really should have just waited in the first place. Right. It's like a patience thing. But seeing right that red day definitely it toys with your emotions because you want to just make money every single day when in reality that's not the best thing that you should be doing here, right? Right. So
Exactly.
how did you get into funding, and do you think like these funded challenges actually helped with your risk management? Because in my opinion, for me, I don't have to worry about losing the money, so it makes it easier for me to take risk.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think like the transition from me going from a personal account, which had me all over the place every single day, I was like putting a grand, 2 grand in an account, right? I remember this IC markets, right? It's the only broker I ever used. And I'll be in like major drawdown, almost like margin call, and then I'll put another 2 grand in, and I'm like, shit, like what's happening, And then I'm like, no, this is gonna come back, this is gonna come back. And of course, it's like 50-50, right? Sometimes it
Hmm.
works and you feel on top of the world again. And then the other times you're like, shit, I'm just not good at this, right? But then the transition to funding now. So funding has definitely helped me with understanding how to better manage my risk. Because when I was on a personal account, I had no risk. I would literally just place this and hold for
Yeah.
until it hits like a 200 pip swing or something like that. Whereas with funding, you have to. The only way you're actually going to make money with funded accounts is once you actually get your risk management in check. So I think the introduction of prop firms has really helped me personally with the way I trade and how to actually make money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made any money from prop firms, right? I think that's just the truth.
I mean, I think I resonate with that wholeheartedly because I've failed spectacularly in personal accounts. Just because I see maybe better traders, or I just didn't have the patience to wait for my $5,000, $10,000, which at the time, right, just working a normal job takes so long to build up because they're feeding you into the system. Well, at least in the States, they're just feeding you into the system where like you have to save for retirement, you have to save for retirement. And now that I look back, it's like, why am I even doing that? Why won't I just take that money and invest in myself instead? Right. I think that 10, 15, 20% of my paycheck, if I'm putting that into retirement, even though it is tax free, right? Like I'm not getting penalized on the taxes until I withdraw it, right? I can't touch that until I'm 65 years old. Basically, I'm already leaving the earth. So why wouldn't you just invest it in yourself and turn your money around that way? But I mean, I just never was able to take that savings. Like you were saying, I was putting the $2,500, $3,000 into account, just blowing 50% of it in like a week because I was like less than my weekly paycheck. And I just didn't really have the structure behind me to see the long-term vision of taking that capital and growing it. Because I mean, they all say like you need money to make money, right? So how actually did you find prop firms? Like, what was the first prop firm that you stumbled upon?
Yeah, it was FTMO, of course.
Hmm.
It was FTMO, and I was actually funded with them 2 years ago when I didn't even know how to trade, right? And believe this, so I actually
Wait, so you
got
were funded before you knew how to trade?
yeah. And I
Oh
actually
my
made a bit of
god.
money, but then I lost the account. But I was actually funded with 140k pounds and then 70k, and then I merged them together. So I actually had a 210k account with FTMO, and I didn't know how to trade. So it
Wow.
must have been a fluke or something. I don't know, but and then when I got funded the first time, I thought, oh, this is it. Like, I'm gonna make loads of money, right?
Hmm.
I only made 6k on that account before I lost it after like 4 months of trying to get out of drawdown. And then after that, I took a break. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Failed some more challenges. So I was like, yep, not doing this anymore. We're gonna take a break. Took a break, focused more on personal accounts. Made a bit of money, like very very little money, but still money, right? And then it was just working the job that I had at the time. And then gradually, got back into the funded game. I'd say around around May last year, right? May last year. So I actually took a 3 month break at the start of the year, and honestly, like that did me wonders for my trading. And people think that that's like giving up, but actually, no, it's a mental reset.
Hmm.
And I would recommend that to anyone that's really going through it at the moment, where they feel like they're never going to make money or they're really struggling, because that is the light bulb moment I had, because I read a ton of books in that time I had off, and then when I came back, my mindset was completely different and my approach was completely different. And gradually we've just been building ever since then. So
That's such an amazing point that you bring up because if people don't know my story, like I was trading without prop firms for like 7 or 8 years, but it wasn't like 7 or 8 years straight, right? Like I would come into the market for 3 months, get my ass handed to me, and then take another 3 month break. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And every time I took those breaks in between, I came back with such like a refreshed mental clarity, and I just kept saying like, all right, that whole time I was gone, I came back to the charts. I'm like, there's some amazing setups happening, and I think they're going to continue happening because the market's moving without me. So like taking those breaks allows you to just completely delete the FOMO. I wouldn't say completely delete it, but allows you to manage it a little bit better. Because when you step away from the market and you come back, you just realize like this is an infinite game. It's moving with or without me, right? And I think a lot of people will get stuck in the idea that if I place this trade, I have to be in the market at this point in time, and because I'm in the market, now it's going to move my direction.
literally. And people think this is like that one trade, right, is the be all end all. And it's
Yep.
not, because the market's, like you said, it's going to be around forever. It's always there, 24/5 every week.
Hmm.
So why can you not build up the patience to just wait and wait until you see a better setup, instead of just jumping in because you feel like you need to make money? So the main issue with, traders in this industry, and myself included, of course, we're all guilty of a lot of the same things, is that you start chasing the money and then you make no money and then you wonder why you make no money. But as soon as you stop looking at figures and stop looking at, okay, I need to make X amount of money every single month, and then you focus on the process, that's when you really start to understand what trading is really about. and how to really, have that focus and tunnel vision on what you're trying to do.
I think the thing is that people, they kind of oversee what you just mentioned, where this marketplace is this, you have to build a skill set, right? And I always refer back to, sports. Like, when I hate seeing these little thumbnails that says Tiger Woods, or whoever, whatever golfer makes X amount of money per golf stroke. Do you think they are actually on the golf course thinking about how much the money they're making when they're swinging the golf club? Right? They're actually focused on their craft first and foremost, and then it pays them. So I think that's the same principle. Like, if you can trade a small account, you can trade a big account. It's just people get so wrapped up in the money aspect of it that they can't, detach from that side of it. They don't realize like it actually is a skill set. So, like, I have a question for you, right? During that 3 month period, what kind of resources were you referring to? And, like, did you always think that you were going to be a trader, or did you go through some breaks where you just completely didn't even look at trading? Because I had some breaks in my career where I just completely just didn't even think about markets. Like, I just went and focused on my career for 3 to 6 months, right? And that kind of boosted my income to allow me to invest in myself a little bit more, right? Buy more books, buy more courses, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was like I didn't completely ever go away from it. Like I was always somehow involved in the markets, even if I wasn't trading, right? And it can be a good thing, but it can also be a very bad thing. So I think the fact that you were able to completely detach yourself from that for set amount of time is amazing, because I really struggled with that. There might have been a few days where I was off the charts, but then I would still be looking at, like, well, what's happening in the news, like what's happening, right? So I was always glued to it to a certain extent. But then when I was working the job, there were periods where the job would really take over. So yeah, in those moments, I probably wouldn't have looked at anything trading related, because I would have been so heavily invested in the job trying to make that work, trying to create some buffer, like you said, and then focus more down the line. Like, okay, no, I'll get back to this. But in terms of like, what did I focus on in those 3 months? I read a lot of books, and most of the books I read weren't actually about like how to trade. It was just about how to deal with your mindset. I remember one book, and I actually have this on my Instagram page from ages ago. I think it was called Eliminating Negative Thinking, something like that, right? That book is only 100 pages, but it changed my mindset completely, because I was in a really dark place at that time. And that's when I was in that reset mode, right? Once reading this book, it really made me understand that, like, okay, how should you actually think, and why do you think in certain ways, and how do you overcome these certain negative thoughts that you have? And since then, I'll be honest with you, even if a negative thought has come to my mind, it goes away very quickly, So you always got a mindset is so important, and people don't understand that. It's so easy to be like, oh, be positive. Yeah, it's so easy to say it, but to actually do it is the most difficult thing. Once you get to a space where you don't let anything, let's say, damage your energy or anything infiltrate your space, it goes a long way for your trading. Trust me.
Yeah, and I think me and you had that one experience in this at the summit, right? Where this person had mentioned they're like in a negative situation. So how do you deal with that? Did you have people around you that were kind of negative towards you? And I mean, in my opinion, that's a skill set in itself, learning how to deal with other people's negative emotions, because they're projecting that negativity onto you, and it does affect your mindset. Like, it feels like maybe you aren't going to make it in trading, right?
100%. And I think we both come from Asian households, right? So
Mhm.
we know what it's like when it comes to negative thinking. There's a lot of members in my family previously where they just wouldn't understand what I'm doing. They thought I was gambling. They're like, trader, what are you talking about? You're just gonna you're gonna lose all your money. You stick to a job, get promoted, da da da, all this shit, right? And I was just like, what,
Yeah.
fuck all of that.
Honestly, it's like that Asian culture is like, they think that negative reinforcement helps.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if let
And
me
don't
just
get me wrong. Don't
berate
get me
this
wrong.
guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. But don't get me wrong, to a certain extent, it might work in certain regards. But when it comes to you actually trying to do something with your life, it actually has the opposite effect of what they think it's going to have, right? Negative thoughts leads to negative outcomes. And
Yeah.
that's a fact. Positive thoughts can lead to a positive outcome. It doesn't mean it always will, but it means you're trying to grow. It means you're trying to develop. It means you're trying to better yourself every single day. And again, that's something that everybody should aim to do, right? Otherwise, what is your purpose in life? Like, forget trading aside, but what is your purpose in life if you're not trying to be better every day?
Yeah. I mean, I think traders have a different mindset in general, because it's like me growing up, I got decent grades, but my brother was like the valedictorian. So I was always trying to live up to that. But yeah, maybe some of that negative reinforcement worked on, like, some of my family members, like my cousins and stuff, because they're all in pretty decent, well-paying careers. But I always had this vision, like I just don't. I was always rebellious. Like I didn't want to go work for somebody else, right? And I think that's a mindset that not a lot of people have. Like they're okay with just going and working for somebody else. But like as a trader, you kind of have to work for yourself. Like nobody's really going to hand this to you and give you the skill set. And that's the biggest thing is, even myself trying to teach others, there's only so much I can do, right? And same thing when it came to me working with, a psychology coach. He can give me all the advice in the world, but if it doesn't come down to me actually putting in the work, like all of that is pointless.
You have to execute. You have to execute.
Mm-hmm. So did like anybody give you like a kick in the ass when it came to trading, or was it just yourself like just constantly failing over and over and again?
Yeah, honestly, like, yeah, nobody. I had nobody to fall on, and I've always been the type of person where I'm like, I have to do everything myself. Yes, it can be bad in terms of if you're stubborn at some point, but then you can also get to a point where you're like, but it's all down to me. There's no one else that's going to come and pick me up from the floor, you know? Of course, you can have a support bubble, which I personally didn't have, right? So I think that kind of made me stronger in terms of what I need to do long term. But of course, if you have the support bubble in a great environment, fantastic. Like I'm happy for you, right? Like whoever does. But unfortunately, I never did. And I don't really look back at it because I'm only looking forward. So now that you actually mentioned it, I thought about it. And actually, yeah, I never had any support. So yeah.
Wait, so you didn't did you see your friends still making money this whole time? Because like I didn't have, so like the thing was, everybody says Forex is a scam, Forex is a scam. So every time I took those breaks, I didn't actually have somebody that I could lead into and see like that they were successful, right? So yeah, I just had periods where I just completely didn't look at the market because I thought it was a scam, and I thought like all these brokers were actually hunting my stops. When in reality, I just sucked at trading.
Yeah. I mean, it depends, right? It depends. There are some brokers out there, but yeah, I mean, look, like my friend was still making money. I remember I was in Dubai for New Year's in 2021 New Year's, and he pulled out his phone and showed me his MetaTrader, right? And he literally was showing, look at this whole year, I've turned 100K to 500K. And I was like, damn, man, I need to up my game because I was just flipping accounts at that point, you know? I was like, the fact that he showed me that, I just use it as motivation. Like anything positive I've seen or anything that's like gets your attention, I'm like, that's fuel. That's fuel. I need to work towards something similar to that. Like everyone's got the same potential in life. It's just down to you to really deliver at the end. And it can take some people 5, it can take some people 10. Like, look, you said you've been trading for over 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example. But look at you. You're like one of the most prominent traders in the whole funding scene, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the funding scene, because when it comes to like institutional traders, we talked about it, right? Some of the big guys are just, you don't even know who they are.
Yeah. And again, probably one of my friends that I mentioned, he's probably like that because he's not active on socials. He doesn't show anyone anything, you know? I just know him because we studied at uni together, you know? That's the only reason I know him. But there's many people making millions and we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of the people that flaunt this online, they're not really making millions. But anyway, that's a different story, right?
Yeah. So what was that like transition like from blowing that FTMO account to going into like being way more consistent? Because obviously you're getting consistent payouts now. Yeah, what was that like bridge? What bridged that gap between you just getting lucky essentially, and now you're consistently pulling profits from the market?
I think it just came down to, again, back to that reset that I had, right? Because remember, this FTML one, this was in 2021. So I was still having a lot of failures until the end of the year. And then when it came to the new year, I was like, you know what? I need a reset. It's just not working. Let's wait for the markets to do what it needs to do as well. You know, I don't really
like my story a bit.
Yeah. I was like, I don't really like to get in the market at the start of Jan because I got wrecked the previous year. So I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to do this again. It's about repetition. Like you have to make all these mistakes to try and learn from them. Of course, some people never learn, right? But you need to try and learn from these, and slowly, you can start putting together this puzzle. That's what I like to call it, right? But I think in terms of what started to show that consistency was just what I say all the time, and you've heard me say it sometimes, is less is more, right? Like literally, less is more. It's so undervalued because people are seeing people make all this stupid money, whether it's real or not, whereas you should just be aiming for small percentages. Like you should be happy at the end of the month. And look, if you've got multiple funded accounts and you aim for a few percent a month, you're making,
call
it life-changing money, because you make a yearly salary in a month sometimes.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Where else are you going to get that sort of reward? Where?
Not with, I mean, there's literally zero overhead. All you need is an internet connection, right? And an
That's
email
it.
address.
That's it. So yeah, that's sort of where that came from. And then in August, when I had like my biggest month ever at the time, August last year, I made about 20k with my forex funds, and I was like, damn, if I can do this, like surely I can start making some money now. And I tried to humble myself because I was like, just remember, you're not going to make this money every month, and just be happy with any profits you make any month, right? So going forward from then, gradually, like I had much lower months, but it was still consistent to me because it was like, I'm still taking money at the markets. The markets ain't taking my money, like as in when I was making those payouts, right? And then when it started this year, like this year so far, the first 6 months have been the best, months I've ever had in trading. So I'm actually going to calculate. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to calculate what have I done for the first 6 months, and I think it's looking like six figures. I think it is. So
Nice. And like, did your strategy change at all? Like, are you trading less frequently? Are you sizing in? Like, what does it look like?
yeah. So I used to be guilty of over trading a lot, like a lot, right? Even if I made profit, I'd be like, no, I'm going back in, just
Yeah.
because fuck it, I'm just going back in, right?
I think
Um,
everybody's been down that road. I don't think
yeah,
anybody's not done it.
yeah, and I think you could still be prone to it. Like it's easy to fall into the trap even
Mhm.
now, right? But you probably might do that on an account that you don't care about because you got all these other accounts, right?
Mhm.
But gradually, when you because I lost so many funded accounts, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but last year I lost a ton. So even when I got the payout in August, I actually lost that account, and then I got the account back again like a month later.
Yeah, I've blown accounts too. Like last year, yeah, I went through a really bad drawdown period in the summertime where I was blowing some accounts. Like I still had some, but they were in drawdown, and then the
Yeah,
whole time I'm not making any money.
that's the thing, and then you start getting stressed out. But that's what
Yeah,
I think. Like people need to understand this year. They might look at people. They might look at you and be like, "Oh, you made all these payouts," but of course you've had many failures along the way. Of course you've blown loads of accounts, but blowing a prop firm account doesn't mean too much. Personally, like
yeah,
you said, it's not your money. Of course, if you can sustain that for a long time, fantastic. But it's not
yeah.
the be all end all. Like it doesn't matter. The
Hmm.
main thing, your purpose with prop firms is: are you taking money out of the markets every month or every other month? And if you are, then you're doing something incredible, right?
Yeah, even if you're, let's say, even if you blow X amount of accounts, if you're net positive by the end of the year, you're a profitable trader. It doesn't matter how many accounts you're blowing.
There you go. And I think people really get that misconstrued because they're like, oh, I've blown an account. Now I'm messed up. I'm a shit trader. No, you're not. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
all right, you didn't manage your risk according to their rules. But remember, if you're trading a personal account, you would be risking way more than that anyway. And you could have made some money. So it's all relative to each individual, right? Some people risk 0.25%. Some people risk 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever it may be. It doesn't mean you're a bad trader. It just means that's the way you trade. And as long as the outcome is you're making money at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, who gives a fuck?
yeah. I think that negative self-talk that comes in after we blow accounts or after we go into drawdown periods is so detrimental to like our learning. And I think, do you think it's possible to become a profitable trader without making those sorts of mistakes? Like, is it possible to become a profitable trader without blowing an account? Because I've read like Market Wizards and stuff, and it seems like every legendary trader in that book has blown an account at some point or another.
Yeah, like, I mean, I want to say that you have to go through failure.
Hmm.
I can't, I don't know any person, or I've not seen any person ever say, unless they're a scammer, right? But unless they say like, oh yeah, I have 100% win rate and I've never had any failures in my trading. Like, fuck off. Like, of course you have. Of course you have. Without failure, you're not going to learn. How do you learn? You learn from mistakes. You can't just read something and learn from it. No, you have to do it. You have to be practical. So with trading, it's all good reading everything on babypips.com, whatever you want to do, right? Theoretical stuff. But until you don't take that practical experience and execute on MetaTrader, on whatever platform you're using, you're
Hmm.
not going to understand what trading is. Because I was there at one point. I used to read a shit ton of things. And then when I started to actually trade on the platform, I was like, what is this? Like, I don't understand this. So you have to put the two together. And I think you get more experience through the practical failures. Because you don't really have any, you can't have theoretical failures. Like, it doesn't make sense unless you
Yeah.
read something and understood it wrong, but that's on you, right?
Yeah. Like for me, it really is just a business. I've failed at businesses before. Like I've tried to create other businesses like web design, graphic design. I was doing like my own apparel brand. And those businesses failed miserably, not because of other people. Like I was doing quite well. I just was not managing myself. And you have to be you have to hold yourself accountable for those failures. And like I didn't learn from those lessons until years later. Because I always had that mindset, like I was looking externally, like, oh, I just have bad luck, etc. Whatever the case was, I just didn't take accountability for my actions. And that's the end of the day, that's the only thing that you can control, right?
Exactly. Keyword accountability,
Hmm.
right? And I promote this so much that without accountability, like you're not gonna go far in your life, let alone trading. Because when you make a loss, you can usually blame it on the markets. And yeah, the market might have done something, but it's still your fault. You made a loss, it's your fault. You know, did you manage your risk? Did you over risk? It's your fucking fault. Same
Yeah.
way, if you made profit, it's on you as well. It's your fault you made money, which is fantastic, right? You got to take the highs with the lows and vice versa, right? It's just part of the game. If
Hmm.
you let a loss define you, you are not going to do anything in trading. And again, back to life, real life. If you let losses in life, take over, then you're going to be stuck in this shell and you're not going to break out from it. I like to think that everyone's in their own shell and then eventually they break out, then they go into a new shell. They break out of that one, they go into a new one. That's how you level up. That's how you grow
Hmm.
and develop as an individual, right?
I think a lot of people, talk about people hitting rock bottom before they make a change. Do you feel like you ever hit that point?
Fuck
Um,
yeah. Fuck
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I was in that time when I said I took that mental reset. I was in the worst place possible. But
Mm,
again, it wasn't just down to trading though. This is one thing people need to understand, and I'm sure many can relate to this, even if they don't think about it properly, is that your personal life dictates your trading as well. The way you live your life dictates your trading. So if you've got loads of issues going on in your personal life, you're stressed out, something's happened, like for example, I mean, I haven't really gone into this with anyone before, but like, my granddad passed away 3 years ago, right? Again, I started trading just over 3 years ago. That fucked me up really badly. That's a personal thing amongst other things. And I'm sure people can relate, right? You got to go through different traumas in life. And that's just part of the process. You have to take your personal life with your trading life when you're trying to grow. Of course, I'm not saying trading should be your life. No, trading should be a gateway to provide for the life that you want,
mhm,
and that's equaling to financial freedom. It's not a set number. Like you shouldn't be aiming for, oh, I need 2 mil, I need 5 mil, I need 500K, whatever. You should be aiming, I need to be happy in life. And by doing that, yes, you need to make money, of course. But you will not make money in these markets without understanding the process or what works for you. Stop chasing the money. Start chasing, the goal, the process,
mhm.
the percentage gains. Working percentages, it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. So that's sort of the advice I'd have for people.
Yeah. I mean, I operate in terms of like R multiples. So if I'm risking one, I want to make at least two.
Yeah,
But like I think going back to, I guess, I mean, I think trading is one of the best self development tools out there. Like it really forces you to, change your bad habits. Maybe stop hanging out with these negative people. Just kind of reshape your environment. And it was interesting because I went out with my buddy. I haven't seen him in a while. We used to play paintball together, and we were just kind of having a cigar, having a drink. And he was saying like he loves the UK, but a lot of people over there are like raging alcoholics. And like when I was over there, I really didn't experience that. And I just said, I didn't really notice that because maybe the people I was hanging out with, all these traders, they just had their shit together. And that, in my opinion, it really does come down to that. Like, you really have to get your shit together if you want to make this work. Like, you can't just be out partying super late till 2 a.m. and then trying to trade New York session or London session. Like, I had to make that sacrifice and just say, I'm going to stay inside and put my head down and just work. Right. Like,
exactly that. And look, if you're not willing to make sacrifices, don't expect any fucking results. Don't
yeah.
expect any at all. The way you live your life is going to dictate how you trade, how you do many things, that are valuable to yourself for self-development. And it's funny you say that about the environment thing, because I don't know one trader who's in a shitty environment that makes money.
That is crushing it. Right.
You know, anyone that's in a good environment, or in a stable environment, let's just say,
Hmm.
they're doing well or above, they're killing it. And that's the one thing I've really noticed recently is people that are in shit environments, they tend to not be able to perform. And it's only normal because we're humans, right? So that's why you need to get yourself out of the environment. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. What else helped me level up last year, right? So I used to live in London. I've lived in London my whole life, right? I moved out of London. I took myself out of a specific environment where there was too much noise for me personally. As soon as I did that, and this was in August, Kyle, this was in August. What's been happening since last year, August? You know, the level,
smashing it, right?
the level up. And that proved it to me alone that I took myself out of a certain situation. I've taken myself out of this environment, and now I'm able to see things a lot clearer. I have a clearer mind, and I'm able to focus on what I need to do. So I would encourage anybody that's in a shit place, and of course it depends on the environment. Some people might not be able to leave that environment. I understand, right? Everyone's got their own personal things to deal with. But if you can, and it's a risk, but you got to take that risk. You know, in trading, no risk, no reward. Like it. What do you want? You know, if you're expecting to just make a shit ton of money without any risk, then you need to find, I don't know what profession, but it's not trading, right?
For me, it was just like, it's as simple as going into like a quiet room and just closing the door, right? Even if you're in a terrible environment that you can't leave, I'm sure you could find a quiet place to go and just, release yourself from that situation. I know you had mentioned like you moved kind of far away from, I mean, not kind of
Not
far,
even that
but
far, just
not even
away.
that far, but away from the family members, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a sacrifice that you had to make. Like sometimes you have to just not cut people off, but you just have to distance yourself from them. Like
Distance. There's nothing wrong with distance. There's nothing, and like we've spoken about this before, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with distance, right? And it's actually helped my relationships in a way. Of course, someone's gonna complain about something, but that's their problem. That's not your problem, right?
Exactly.
You need to do what makes you happy at the end of the day, and try to be reasonable. I'd say that's the main thing. Rodrigo does have a question actually. What's your process to come out of drawdown?
My process, lately, right now, because last year was kind of like very, very volatile for me. Like, and we can talk about this as well because I know when we just talked, you had just gone full time, right? But yeah, I don't want to go through that period where I'm just blowing accounts and not making any money. So like, if I go into a drawdown period right now, I feel comfortable enough just lowering my risk and just making sure that equity curve is pointing upwards again. I think when we had the females on, when the ladies on last time, or maybe it was somebody else, I can't remember. I've been having so many conversations lately. Like when your equity curve starts pointing downwards, the best thing that you could do is make sure that thing flatlines, because if it keeps going down, then you're dead. So that's my biggest thing. Is now I'm trying to deal with drawdown. Just get the equity curve pointing upwards again, and take it slow, because when you get to that all-time high again, then you can start pressing the gas and really get over the hill, right?
Yeah, no, facts. And for me, it's like very similar, right? But what I've started doing now, and a really recent example is that 400k that I have, right? So I was actually 6% in drawdown at the end of May. Of course, down to my own stupidity, which is perfectly fine to me. I just laughed about it. I'm like, well, I've been here before, like, that GTA one, like, oh shit, here we go again. That was basically what was happening, right? And I was like, all right, let's take our time. It took me a month to get out of that drawdown and get into like 0.5% profit and then get a payout, right?
Which honestly is amazing, man. Like doing that, you're essentially doubling the account in a month, is what people don't realize. Is like, if you're going to 6%, it's not impossible to get out of it. Like, let's say if you're doing a 0.25% risk, you're doing 1 or 2s, like you're eating away at that drawdown, a 0.5% here, 0.5% there. All of a sudden you're back to break even.
Exactly that. And that's pretty much what happened, right? But one thing I will say is when I'm in drawdown, I'm a lot more cautious on the trades I take, which is funny because when you're at balance, you're not, well, personally for me, I'm not as cautious as I am when I'm in drawdown, right? And that's when I'm like, I'm going to make a percent, 2%, 3%, right? Happens sometimes, but when it doesn't happen, boy, you go in drawdown, you're like, okay, well, now I need to manage the risk properly again. It's a cycle, and it's a never-ending cycle. Anyone that tells you that they don't go into drawdown or don't go into any heavy drawdown, I think they're just lying, or they don't want to show it. You got to be transparent in everything you do. And one thing I'll say is, by me actually showing my journey, even my losses I show, right, it's helped me become better and accountable, because instead of hiding it, and then if I lose an account, it's like, but what did I learn from losing that account? Absolutely nothing. Whereas if I put it out there and I actually take it in, absorb that losing energy, which sometimes you have to, right? And I still take it as a positive. Even if I've lost, I take it as a positive because I'm like, okay, so what did I actually learn from this?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, in my opinion, if you followed your process, even if it's a red day, that can still be an A+ day.
Facts,
You
facts.
can't control the outcome of any specific trade.
You can't, you can't. And the sooner people realize that the markets will do what the fuck the markets want to do,
Yeah.
the sooner you will be in the real world.
Yeah. So I mean, I think so many people are focused on the short-term outcomes that they forget what your equity curve might look like after, say, 12 months, right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Or 2
And
years.
exactly that. And that's why I say you should aim for small percentage gains on a monthly basis, because then by the end of the year, even if you do 10%, 20%, let's just say, right, which are very high anyway in the industry, if you really be real about it, like you should be so proud of yourself at the end of that 1 year, that 2 years,
Exactly.
Whereas if you're looking at short-term gains, as you said, right, that people do, then in a month you'd be like, oh, so like I've seen people do this on Twitter, right? They'll be like, so this month I blew five funded accounts and I've got funded with another 5, and I'm just like, well, how long are you going to live that cycle for until
Yeah.
what are you going to do when prop firms go away? You're fucked because you got no money. you
Yeah.
know
It's just about the money management aspect and the risk management. Like, you're not going to be able to escape that gambling tendency no matter what you come across. Because if you come across a really good business opportunity, whatever the case is, you're probably going to take that same habit and just go heavy into that one business.
That's it. And that's the way it should be. But end of the day, the only way you learn from things are through experiences.
Yeah.
So until you don't experience something, and it could be the worst thing in the world, you won't know how to handle it next time or handle something on the same level next time. And that's very important. And that's why, as you said, trading is a very self-reflective, let's call it a game, right? It's very
Yeah.
self-reflective, right? Self-reflective journey, and this only helps you become a better person.
Yeah.
And it really helps you understand what tendencies you have, which bad tendencies you have, which good ones you have. And that sort of goes down to your personality traits, doesn't it? So if you have a gambler's mindset, of course you're going to keep blowing accounts all the time, and then you're going to get funded again. People think when you get funded, it's like the best thing ever. But if you get funded and get no payout, then you're just a fucking
You're playing a
joker.
video game. Yeah.
You're playing Call of Duty and you've just respawned again and again and again.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
No, so it's interesting you bring up the personality thing. So I think a lot of people are just operating in that phase of unconscious incompetence, right? They're just doing things without even really thinking it through. Do you feel like, because when you brought up people get complacent right around like balances, and I think one of our good friends said that, right, that on the back end of the prop firm, somebody was up $16,000 and then blew most of their. So like for me, right, I just got my payout on my Forex funds. I took one trade the other day, I made like 3%. I'm not trading for another 2 weeks on that account, right? I think a lot of people just they're giving back the money for zero reason, right? Like, if that 3% is going to pay you more than your job, why don't you just sit around for 2 weeks and enjoy life, right? Like, there's no stress. You don't have to worry about trying to run it up for the leaderboard,
Yeah,
because
you
the
know what?
leaderboard at the end of the
Fuck
day,
the
it
leaderboard.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, fuck the leaderboard. Honestly, like I'm not shitting on prop firms, obviously, because I love prop firms, right? But
Dennis is in the
that
chat.
leaderboard thing really throws traders up, especially the new ones, because they're like, I'm gonna get on that leaderboard now, and I'm like, what kind of fucking achievement is that? Learn how to trade, learn how to make a percent before you try and aim for a leaderboard. Like leaderboard, people doing 20, 30% it's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's not trading, that's gambling to a certain extent,
Listen, you could do it if you have 9 other funded accounts, right? And you're just doing it on the
Yeah,
one
yeah,
account.
yeah.
But Dennis is in the chat. Let's see if we could take down the leaderboard for a day.
Well,
So I mean, do you have any advice for people that are operating in unconscious incompetence? Because for me, it was just like a really harsh reality check for myself. I was like, I just can't keep doing this. Like, I got to that point where I put in like 5K, maybe probably been in a little more. And honestly, at the time, it was like 3 months worth of me saving. And I blew like 50% of it in like a couple days. I withdrew the money and bought my wife's engagement ring. And at the time, it's like, what is even making me make these decisions, right? Like, I was just on autopilot, essentially trying to gamble in the market, and like really with no clear plan. I was just, trying to swing for the fences, which I think a lot of people are doing. They're just in that phase.
Yeah, I think it's the subconscious mind speaking, right? But then it's also that you're in this sort of gambler's mindset without you really realizing it. And I think that all comes from addiction, because let's not forget that when you first get into trading, if you really like it, it becomes an addiction, right? It's just like being addicted to anything. I know at one point I was addicted where I was like, I need to trade every single day without reason. And then my reasons for taking those trades had no reason. Like, does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? So I think we've all been in that cycle, and it's only down to you to snap out of it. And the way you snap out of it is by going through that harsh reality, as you mentioned, that, okay, look, I've lost 10K now of my own money. Fuck the prop firms, because, 10K of my own money. What do I need to do now? Because at one point I was minus 15K at the start of my journey, and I made some stupid mistakes, very stupid mistakes. 2 years later, it only took me 2 years to make that money back before I started to then be like, yeah, I'm in profit in trading.
Yeah, right.
So it's down to the individual. Yeah, like I say, a lot of people, and I said this in the TFT pod, right? Like, a lot of people are too soft. It's the harsh reality that a lot of people are too soft, So if you don't have thick skin in this game, you're really going to struggle down the line. Like, you're really going to struggle for longevity. Yes, you might make short-term gains. Fantastic. But if let's say if you made 50 grand in 1 month, oh, wow. Like, it's great, by the way, right? But then if you didn't make money for the next 11 months, you're just living off that 50K for the whole year and maybe losing more money. So how would you feel in that position, right? People don't think about this. They don't think about the end goal, the long-term goal. And that's what you should really focus on, because that's what trading is about. The markets are there to fuck you over. They're there to wreck you. You need to understand every day is a fucking battlefield. You need to go in, manage your risk accordingly, or know when not to trade. Like, otherwise you're going to take stupid losses, and those stupid losses are going to lead to real losses, like, eventually. So
it really is a mental battle. I see it as a mental battle every single day, because every time I put on risk, I feel that uncomfortability. There's never a point in time where I put on risk and just say, oh yeah, I'm like, I'm going to crush this trade. There's always that level of uncertainty and uncomfortability when you put on risk, and
it's you versus you.
Yeah.
Nobody else. It's not me versus you. No, it's you versus you. And then the markets are like there at the top, right?
Yeah. The market's going to do what it's going to do, right? Like, you can't change that.
You can't.
So I kind of want to talk to you about, like, setting goals and stuff, because I guess transitioning, like, did you have in mind when you wanted to leave your job, and like, what was that experience like? Did you have a long-term goal? Like, I'm going to leave my job in X amount of time, whatever the case was.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, the goal from the very beginning when I got my first job was, I don't want a job, right? That was, even when I couldn't make any money from trading. I didn't give myself like a time limit, because I feel like when you do that, you sort of miss the real value that you need to learn and provide for yourself, right? But one thing I did was that, okay, I'm going to show up every single day. Even if I'm feeling terrible, I'm still going to show up. I know people say, oh, if you're having a bad day, don't trade or don't do anything trading related. I still show up. And if it fucks me over, it fucks me over. I just take it, right? And I think that just builds a stronger foundation for you down the line, right? So gradually, I just think that you need to be accountable for yourself to understand where you went wrong. And eventually it will come to you. Like, a lot of this is common sense, believe it or not. A lot of it is common sense, but we have to experience this as human beings to sometimes even understand basic common sense, which is a sad reality, but it's true.
Right? Because a lot of people are doing shit that they shouldn't be doing, right? It's common sense that they shouldn't be doing it. They're doing it anyway. Like, it's just, I mean, that's how you kind of get stuck in the system, right? You just have to break out of that specific mindset and start operating on a different wavelength.
Yeah, exactly that. And sorry I didn't actually answer your proper question for the job, but what moving back to that. So what actually, like, told me that, okay, you know what, you're ready to leave, like, it's time. And don't get me wrong, it's everything you do is a risk. It doesn't matter how much money you've made, it's still a risk, right? You don't know what the next month's gonna hold. But for me, I got to a point with this company that I just left, right, where it was a great job, by the way. Like, I was in pre-sales, really good money, like 6 figures, whatever, right? But I valued my time over making a fixed amount every month, And once I got to a point, like, the company was kind of going downhill as well. So I was like, actually, it's not worth me staying in this job when I don't actually need to be in the job, whereas I can dedicate more time to trading, and helping others and doing what I need to do live my life a bit more free, right? And the end goal in trading is freedom, isn't it? Like you want to be able to live life on your own terms. So I think I got to a point recently where I was like, in my mind since January, I was like, I'm going to leave anyway. I just don't know when. But when the time feels right, and I think only you will know when the time is right. Like you took a risk, right? You said you left your job and then in 1 year, like you made shit ton of money from trading. Like, you know, it's all about risk.
It was a risk though at the time, but it was more of a health risk for me going into my job every single day because I had to commute all the way towards New York City. People were driving like straight up maniacs, like doing 90 on the freeway. I'm almost getting in accidents like nonstop, and it was really just that one day where pretty much I had a really stressful project that I was working on, and I think upper management wasn't like backing me up and telling the client like, "Hey, we need to push this off." And like I was essentially working all weekend, all night. Like I think in the span of 4 days, I got like a couple hours of sleep, and then I almost got in a car accident on like that Monday, and I just quit the next day. Honestly, I didn't even give him 2 weeks because like it was a risk for me health wise to lose all that sleep and going to work. And then not only that, my boss had told me like he showed up to work super early. I think he was in the office at like 5 a.m. and he straight up said he was like, "I've been here since like 3. I've been having cold sweats." And I'm like, all right, this is a major red flag here.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to put myself in a position where now I'm all of a sudden that's what I'm doing with my life, right? And I just had to like just say, listen, it might not work out, right? It might. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna try anyway. And I think that was the biggest hurdle for me to take was to just be comfortable leaving that job because I mean, I think there's a term that, you know, people give you a salary or a paycheck to kill your dreams, right? Essentially.
Facts. But you see in that, right, what you just said, you had your why. You had your why ready before you even made that jump, right? So you knew why you were doing it. So actually, in a way, did you put pressure on yourself? Yes. But what's that saying? Pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
You know?
But it was pressure for a good purpose. I think too many people are out here trying to trade to get the AP or the Lambo. Like that's not a deep enough purpose. Like if you're chasing that, you're not going to make it.
That's all bollocks. I think anyone that strives for all this stupidness is probably not making money from actually trading, and they're probably making money from selling that dream of trading.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to you as an individual, you know, and that's why I think it's so important to understand who you are before you get into trading, even for beginners. Understand who you are as a person, because a lot of people, I'm pretty sure people even in this chat, a lot of them question who they are. They don't even know who they are, you know, and that's not a bad thing. It just means you need to come to a realization at a certain point in your life. And I had that probably like 5 years ago, understanding who I am or who I want to be. And then gradually I've been growing as a person since then, you know, and it all comes with timing. Like everyone's timing is different. You see some people that are young, like look at Paladin, like this guy, he's killing it. You know, I don't know anyone else.
I feel like he's lying about his age. Maybe he's not actually 22.
You need to tell the truth, mate. Yeah, I know you're not 22. Joking. But you know, prime example. But then they might be, look, you're a perfect example as well, right? You started making all this money how many years ago?
Yeah, just recently.
There you go. So, like, people need to remember, fuck the age. The age means nothing. You know, you could be 50 years old and then start making money and then live your best life. Like,
exactly.
Who is? You know,
I like looking at I mean, there's a bunch of like famous actors, a bunch of famous authors, right, that have gotten their starts later on in life, and I think that's fine. You know, like some people don't turn their lives around until whatever that time is, but like if you're unhappy in your specific situation, it's better to make the changes now than to wait 20, 30 years from now, right? Because then you might regret all those years that you might have wasted, right? When you really have control over what you're trying to do right now.
Yeah. And I think the biggest regret you can have in life is not doing what you wanted to do, or at least try. If you've never tried, look, okay, what's the percentage of people failing at trading? Like 90%, 95%, what is it, right? But at least those people tried. You know, without trying, you're never gonna know what you're capable of if you're able to do anything. Trading aside, again, right? Like whatever you put your mind to, eventually you can do it. It just depends how much you want it. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And few people actually understand this, you know, that like, yeah, you lose a lot of money and then you just give up, but then you're never going to see that money again. If I did that, I wouldn't have made the money back after 2 years. And 2 years is a long fucking time for me. You know, I was struggling. I was like, damn, man, I'm living like paycheck to paycheck with this job, and I'm funding my account through this money. Without this
Yeah.
job, I won't be able to fund this account. But then if I lose that money and I lose my job, what am I going to do? You know, like there were so many scenarios going on in my head, but you just keep pushing, you keep pushing. Honestly, that things will work out the way they need to work out. Because if you ask me, oh, this time last year, where did you see yourself this time a year later? I'd be like, I don't know. I generally don't know. And this is where I am right now. And the place I'm in now, I feel like this is just a building phase for me. You know, like, yes, I get like a lot of kind words and I'm forever grateful for that stuff, you know, like motivating people, whatever it may be. Yeah. But also, each individual has their goals, personal inner goals where they want to reach, right? Like, if you look back 2 years ago, did you think you're going to make over 500K in
No.
payouts? Like,
No. Honestly, the first year, I told my wife, I was like, I don't even care if I'm negative this year. I'm gonna try and make this work. You know, I was just that fed up with the current situation that I was in, and yeah, making all that money is great, but if I have no time to spend it or spend time with my family, like I'm essentially in the rat race, right?
That's it. That's it. And shout out Rich Dad Poor Dad if you haven't read that book.
Mm.
I'd recommend reading it because it does open your mind up to a lot of things, and especially quoting the rat race, right? Like you really
Yeah.
understand that we're all in the rat race. We're all in
Mhm.
it, and it's not by choice; it's by default. The system has
Yeah.
put us in a specific place, and they want you to, you know, adhere to that place they've given you. So it's down to you to break out of that and be like, well, I want to try and live life on my own terms. And don't get me wrong, since COVID, all of that, life has got a lot harder. It has, but it should make you want to go harder as well, you know. And only a few people really have that will to execute.
Yeah, I think in my situation, I think pressure makes diamonds. So I just put myself against the wall and I got to fight my way out of it. Like I think a lot of people are just so comfortable where they're at, even if their life is shit, they're
Yeah.
still comfortable just doing the same thing over and over and over
So this
again.
is the
You
thing.
know?
This is the thing, right? I cannot wake up on any given day and tell myself I'm in my comfort zone.
Mm.
Fuck no. Fuck no. If you're in your comfort zone, do not expect growth. Do not expect results. Do not expect to reach heights that you're aiming to reach. I'm sorry, but that's the true reality, right? You have to take yourself out of the comfort zone. If honestly, I can't fathom enough like how much you should not be in your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Especially your trading, because every single day, well, 5 days in the week, the market will do whatever it wants to do to you, and you have to accept that. The only way you accept that is by not being in your comfort zone. You know, when you're in your comfort zone, I feel like that's when people struggle even more with losses. Once you're out of that comfort zone and you're suffering losses, it's okay. Like I laugh at all of my losses. It might sound crazy, but I genuinely laugh at all of my losses. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Next week is a new week. Like, let's get it.
Yeah. I turn my losses into a joke. You know, I'll tweet out Omar and say,
Almost.
"Hey, Kimmel, why are they fading me?"
Yeah.
But yeah, let's hop into the Q&A real quick. Let's pull up the chat. Let's see what we got here.
What we got? What we got?
We got some questions. I think somebody was asking what book. Just what Jay Trader was asking, which book were you reading?
So the one I was referring to is called Eliminating Negative Thinking. It's on my Instagram. So check it out, UmzieFX. You should be able to see it. And there's a few other books as well in there. There's one by Steve Burns as well. I think Guide to Trading Psychology. Highly recommend that as well. They're all mindset books. I've only ever read mindset books, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I read a ton of books. I just every book that I read, it's like, all right, how can I apply this to trading? Literally I'm obsessed with the market. So like, if you don't have that unhealthy obsession, I don't think you're really gonna make it because
I
you
agree.
really have
I
to have a
agree.
passion for this because it's brutal, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think these books really help you to understand how to get out of those bad times as well, you know?
Yeah, and like the world isn't really as bad as you think it is, you know.
Facts.
Yo, Jade and Umzi, could you guys cover how to show up consistently to execute, how to develop consistency?
You, you want
to go? You want to go first?
How to show up, consistently execute. So, look, it all comes down to you, first of all. Like, strip away the charts and everything. It comes down to you. Are you a consistent individual in your life? First, ask yourself that question, right? If you are, great. If you're not, it's still okay. Like, you just work on it, right? Like, I'm not consistently great in everything I do, but there are certain things I'm good at, and there's certain things I'm really bad at. And I think every human being has their pros and their cons. You know, we're all flawed in certain ways. Now it's down to you to understand, okay, where am I going wrong? Why am I not having consistency? Ask yourself these questions. Don't just trade and be like, oh, I'm going to be consistent. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Ask yourself all these hard questions. Question your life. Get to that stage. That's where I've been, and then you'll really easily understand that you can really simplify the process to understand, okay, how can I actually make this money now? Or how can I actually make these percentage gains? Focus on percentage gains. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. I look at it as like strike rate. Like how many days if you say you're going to do something, how many days out of the week are you actually doing it, right? If you're doing it only 25% of the time, there's no way you're going to make progress. Like if you want a high strike rate, you have to show up at least 50% of the time. So if you say you're going to do something, you have to stick to that. Let's say in a month, I'm going to stick to 2 or 3 trades a week. If 3 of those weeks I'm doing 5+ trades, all of a sudden my strike rate is not 50%. So like if I want to make improvements towards my goal, I have to show up at least the majority of the time. You don't have to be a straight maniac, and like I'm not doing ice baths every day. I think some people might think I'm doing ice baths every day, but if I was doing ice baths every day, like I'd be broke. No, but I'm not doing them every day. It's just the majority of the time I'm gonna do it, and when I don't, yeah, maybe I feel bad about it, but I'm not gonna, kill myself over it.
Facts. And just remember that nobody is perfect. If you're
Yeah,
looking for perfection, you're never going to get it. And it's only going to sort of alter your progress as an individual, right? So be realistic with yourself. Know your limits as well. Because, everyone can say, oh, we have unlimited potential. Yes, we do to a certain extent. But you need to be real with yourself. Understand your limits as a person. What are you good at? What are you bad at? Once you identify those things, then you can try and put that together and then formulate a plan that works for you. Everyone's trading style is different. Like Kyle, the way you trade is probably completely different to the way I trade. I know your risk management is way more on point than mine, for example, but certain things work for me because I have a certain approach, and those work for you because you have that approach. But we both make money, right?
yeah.
That's just what it's down. It's down to
I
you.
would say at times maybe my risk management is better, but like I'm still working on it. You know what I mean? You're never gonna get to the point in trading where you're just like, all right, I made it. I don't have to do any more work.
Never,
Like
ever,
you're
never.
always trying to get better, and I think it's the best puzzle in the world. And a lot of people say that. Like I think it's the greatest puzzle in the world. As long as I have my cognitive abilities and I can click a button, like I'm probably gonna be trading for the rest of my life. And that's kind of what I liked about trading too, is it has that allure to it where you can do this for the rest of your life. You don't have to retire at a certain age. Like when I turn 65, hopefully I'm making way more than I am now, right? But at least I have the freedom to do whatever I want.
This is the thing, right? People need to understand there is no fucking holy grail. There is no such thing
Yeah.
as the holy grail. If anyone tells you this, stop looking at what they do. Stop talking to them. They're probably trying to sell you some shit, right? Like a holy grail blueprint to succeeding in trading, which is just a load of bollocks.
Yeah.
Right?
The holy grail for me is just straight up hard work.
That's it. Hard work. Show up. This is what I'd say, yeah. Just show up. Like that's all you need to do is show up. Yes, if you're still not doing as well as you want, that's perfectly fine. We've all been in that situation, Everyone's been through failures. You have to go through failures to really get to where you want to get to, and that's it.
Yeah. My thing was because I was trading for so long, it's just I want to just make progress year over year. Like even if you don't have a crazy year and you're not smashing your goals as much, just look back at last year. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of noticed that in my career is like I was always trying to compare myself to other people that were like climbing the ladder faster than me. Well, like when I look back in such a short amount of time, it's like, wow, like X amount of years ago, I wasn't only making this much and I was only doing this. Right. But the goal is to always progress. Like if you're just running in place year after year, like you're letting 12 months go by without you doing shit about it.
Yeah, no facts. And let me ask you this, right? So you said you were looking at these other people before. When you made this big jump, all this progress you were making, were you still comparing yourself to these other people? Because personally, for me, I never tried to compare myself to anyone, and the reason I did that was because I feel like it's detrimental to your self-development when you start comparing to other people. Because if you look at someone making 6 figures but you haven't touched 6 figures yet, you're gonna feel a type of way if you start comparing. Whereas
I
if you're
think that
like,
was the thing too, is because I had a close friend that, helped me get the job and stuff. And I saw him like progressing really fast. I was like so focused on what he was doing that I didn't have the guts to take that risk and be like, step in the office myself, the HR, and say, listen, guys, I want more work. I want to make more money. Like, give me more responsibilities. I'm ready. Right. Like, I was so depressed and mad that this guy was doing better than me. But at the same time, like, I wasn't taking control of my situation.
Exactly. You stopped focusing on yourself, right? So the moment you stop focusing on yourself, you will not see progress. You just will not, because you're focusing on someone else's energy. You should be focusing on your own.
Yep.
And it's a very common thing to do. Don't get me wrong, we've all been there at some stage in our life, right? But I think the sooner you realize that you should be focusing on your own energy and obviously good energy around you, and stop focusing on people that may be doing better than you. You know, like I know people that are doing, let's say, less than certain individuals, but they're much better people than those other individuals, you know? So remember to be a good person. Aside from trading, like you need to be a good person as well, because I believe karma's a bitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a bad person, eventually it'll catch up to you, you know, and you'll make some big loss because you were fronting that you're this millionaire trader where you're not really in reality, you know?
Yeah.
That's just an example anyway, but yeah.
So artist is asking any suggestions on how to pass a funded account. Do you want to go first?
Now you take that one. You take that one.
Okay, so how I look at funded accounts is you have to figure out like what your frequency of trades is and your actual percentage of risk. I don't care about any type of strategy. You could use any strategy in the book. Let's say if you have 20 trading days and you have 10% drawdown, are you going to take one trade a day, right? Because if you're taking one trade a day, you want to just do 0.5% risk. That allows you to possibly have, 20 losers in a row without blowing the account, and then you blow the account. So like just do some rudimentary math and divide out your trading days, how much risk you want to take, and focus on that. And then just focus on those A+ setups. Maybe it's once a day, maybe it's 2 times a day, maybe it's 2 times a week, right? Maybe it's 3 times a week. But split that risk into segments, right? So if I have 20 days, let's say if I have 4 weeks, right? And I have a 10% drawdown, I really only want to risk like 2 or 3% of that per week. Right. So that's, to me, is like 2 or 3% per trade. If you have a string of great trades, yeah, you could pass a phase one in a week, right? But I don't put that expectation on myself. Like, I'm just dividing my risk based on the time limit and treating my risk management accordingly. And yeah, same thing for phase one, phase two. And then once you get funded, just try and get a payout. Like, that's the biggest thing. So many people just get their funded accounts and just completely lose it. We just talked about the guy that was up 16K and now he's up 1K or something. I don't know who it is, but maybe we'll find out and call him out. Can you imagine, like, if you're up 16K, that's just straight up greed.
Yeah,
like, you can't
that's
wait
like
another
you're
couple
chasing
weeks.
the money. Yeah, facts.
If you're getting paid 16K in a month, you're doing better than probably 80% of people in the whole world. Just slow down, you know what I mean? Like,
literally. And yeah, I agree with everything you just said, pretty much. But one thing I'll say here, right? A lot of people are passing challenges, but then just losing the funded account, right? Like, I think there was a statistic that went around. It was like only 30% get funded, and I think it was like only 3% actually get a payout. Can you imagine that? Like,
yeah,
actually get a payout. So yes, focus on trying to get a funded account 100%. But the way that my approach is a bit more like, I'm a bit more aggressive with challenges, and I'm not telling anyone to do this. It's just, I risk a bit more with challenges. But as soon as I get a funded account, I'm like, that risk is gonna be really tight now. It's gonna be really tight, because I think there's like different steps, right? So yes, you get funded. That's step one. Then step two is getting that payout. Once you got the first payout, then you start to feel like, okay, I've got some money. You got your refund back, everything, right? Then you have multiple steps after that where you prove to yourself, yes, month after month or bi-weekly, whatever it is, I'm getting payouts. I don't care if it's $200. I don't care if it's $1,000. I'm making money. That is the goal. I am getting payouts. I feel like the more payouts you get, the better you start to understand how to approach the markets with your funded account. But a lot of the times I used to get like my first payout and then I'll blow my account. Or sometimes I wouldn't even make my first payout, and I'd be like, damn, I went through all this to get nothing and actually lose my challenge fee as well,
Yeah. There's some other great questions in here. Let's see. My brother Noah is asking, shout out Noah.
Yeah, my guy.
French Connect. It would be nice to have your opinion about who is capable to trade, what the mindset people should have in the early stage of trading. I think you have to just have an open mindset. You have to be comfortable failing miserably. Like when you come into the marketplace, you don't know anything. I don't care if you studied finance. I studied finance. I was asking my professors about all this stuff. They didn't know a damn thing. They're like, "What's forex?" I'm like, "Aren't you like the guy to tell me what it is?"
Yeah, yeah. I think when it comes to the mindset, this is a really good question, by the way. Um, I think the mindset you should have. So yes, you cannot be closed-minded. That's a fact, right? Because if you're closed-minded, you're going to think that there's only one way to trade, and oh, I'm going to make it. Like no, being open-minded, you're able to absorb specific information from different angles, right? Like you might understand that okay, trading is technical, so yes, but actually the majority of it is psychology.
Hmm.
So if you get your psychology in check from early, you'll understand the markets a lot better because let's be real, right? Anyone can do technical analysis, right? Like you can read a chart and everyone reads a chart in different ways, but anyone can do analysis. Whether they're right or wrong is a different story, but anyone can do it, right? It's that mental fortitude that you need to have. So I think it depends on what kind of person you are. So a perfect example is if you're, I don't know, prone to gambling before getting into trading, you're already there's red flags, right? Like you're already prone to a gambler's mindset. So when you get into trading, you might be like, oh, I need to flip accounts, you know? Whereas
Yeah.
if you've never gambled before, you can still have a gambler's mindset, of course, because I think that's just human nature, right? But you might be more inclined to really understand how to manage your risk from the get-go rather than being in that gambler's mindset.
So I'm gonna actually pop up a QR code right here. It's for Carol Dweck. Have you heard of that?
Now, what's that?
It's a book. It was recommended by S&B Capital. Let me see if I could put. I guess I can't put the whole title here, but I'm gonna pop up this QR code right here. So yeah, if you scan that, it's about having a growth versus a fixed mindset. So if you have a growth mindset, you're okay with all those challenges that you're coming across, and essentially the growth curve that you have to go through to actually learn something. I'm sure you probably recognize that when you step foot into like a professional environment, right, at work. I noticed the same thing too. I think I was so gung ho. Like as soon as I graduated, like I'm gonna become the CEO tomorrow. Like as soon as I stepped foot in that door, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
when you get in there, you realize you don't know anything.
yeah.
And then you just have to be comfortable with that growth period because you don't get it overnight.
No,
Like
you don't. It takes years, you know. And if anyone tells you that it will take them a few months, then you're heavily mistaken, right?
yeah,
And I think that growth mindset really comes with time. Like, time is so valuable, but at the same moment, that without time, you will not grow. First of all, your mindset will never change in the way it's supposed to change because obviously gradually your mind starts to, let's say, reform or shape a certain way, right? Like you might look back 2 years ago and be like, fuck, I used to think so bad, like the way I used to approach things was terrible. But now gradually over time you've understood that actually, wait a minute, if I think this way or if I'm a bit more open to people's opinions, obviously they have to make sense because there are some silly opinions out there too, which is fine, but you need to be able to differentiate. You need to be
mhm.
able to take critical feedback. You need to be able to take criticism from whoever it may be, and truly, I feel like that's the way you can actually grow
Yeah.
long term.
I think you got to make an effort too. I used to hate reading books. Like I'm a slow reader.
Yeah,
I didn't for the most part I was just going on cliff notes like during English class and just copying and pasting. Right, you have to be comfortable just diving into a book and like putting your whole attention into it because everything right now is just so focused on short form stuff that you can't really like sit down and learn anything. If you open up a book and just sit quietly in a room for a couple hours, I guarantee you're gonna learn something.
facts, facts.
So, Dr. HJ is saying the goats. I started at 44 years old coming from playing poker. I find this so interesting because I think poker is very much like trading, where I think the best players are playing probabilities and they're playing bankroll management. But at times they're all going all in on certain hands. Like, do you ever feel like you treat trading like the same way? Do you ever feel like you're going, for me, all in essentially just means I'm scaling into a position, but I'm still going to manage my risk. So if I do take a loss, I'm never going to blow the account.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like whenever I scale in, I always put my stop loss at break even of the first trade, and I'm like, even if I took a loss, like it's not a substantial loss. It's quite low in comparison to the reward I'm trying to gain, right? So it really depends, but I don't scale in too often nowadays. You know, before I
Yeah,
used to
me
scale a lot.
neither. I mean,
Yeah,
I do the same thing. Like, until I put that second position on, I need to get my other stop to break even. And then when I take another position, it's again just another 1R, right?
yeah,
Exposure.
yeah, yeah. Exactly that. So you know, it depends what you're comfortable with. Because remember, everyone is comfortable with different things. So you might be comfortable with risking like, I don't know, 0.5%, right? I might be comfortable risking 1%. Someone might risk 5%, but it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's all relative to what you are comfortable with.
There's nothing stopping you from risking 4.5%, right? But if you lose that trade, yeah, now you got some work to do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Don't just try and get right back in it, risk another 4.5%, and now you're, blowing up.
Look, we need to remember it's a game of probabilities,
Yep.
you know? Yeah,
So if you had to summarize your trading in a few keywords, how would you summarize it? Few
Very good
keywords.
question. Whoever forever great is. So summarize. Look, I focus a lot on psychology, right? Like I focus a lot on how I'm feeling and what approach I should take, depending on what I see in the markets. But in terms of like an actual strategy, do you mean does he probably mean like what do I look at, like what things do I use, confluences, stuff like that, probably, right? So mainly, you know, the things I focus on: price action, supply and demand zones, a few moving averages, and just market structure. Those are the four main things I look at. And then I have my psychological levels, right? So this is why I'd actually recommend really studying one pair. So a perfect example already, yeah, is that if your watch list, and some people might hate me for this, but if your watch list has more than, I don't even want to say 3 pairs, but let's say 5 pairs, there's a problem right there, especially if you're early in your journey, right? If you're more experienced and you're making money, do whatever you want. But I'm saying early in, yeah. I've seen some students that have where they got 15 pairs in their watch list. And I'm like, get rid of 14 of these right now and focus on one pair. Focus on one pair, study it, understand how it's been moving for the last few years or even longer, understand how this pair moves. And trust me, you'll become already, you know, a lot more glued on to how you should be trading this specific pair. If you keep jumping pair to pair, like don't expect to make money because you're not going to understand the certain market structure surrounding that specific pair. Yes, there are pairs that are inverse to each other. Yes, but again, that's just a confluence, maybe, you know, like the DXY with, I don't know, gold or USD JPY, right? Like people use that, but it doesn't always move the same way. So you should, I recommend having at least 3 to 4 confluences before you tend to jump in a trade. And even then, sometimes it's not good enough, you know, depending on what the market's doing.
So now I have more pairs on my watch list, but I just like flip through them. You know, like if it's really a great setup, then I'll look at it more.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm not just like sitting there. The thing is, don't sit there and analyze in detail every single pair that you're looking at because it's going to drive you crazy. And that's what Umzie's saying. You're way better off just cutting your pairs down to 2, you know, maybe 3, or even just 1. Like when I first came in, it was just Euro USD, you know. But that took me a long time to get to because I saw all these assets moving. And it's like I want to be in everything right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I used to be the same, and then I just focused on GBP AUD, and till this day, like I still look at that pair, you know.
You don't want to get too distracted, right?
No, it's because it's all noise at the end of the day. Like if you're looking at too many pairs and you don't even know how to trade, what do you think is going to happen? Like be real. What do you think is going to happen? You know, sometimes help yourself. It's very easy to help yourself sometimes, and it's right in front of you. Like, what am I doing wrong? Keep it simple. Like, you know, okay, when it comes to your charts, right? I love to have naked charts, like clean charts, and then just redo them sometimes, right? Not that my charts are messy anyway, but I see a lot of people have some messy charts, and I'm like, what the hell is on here? Like, what indicators are you? Why are you even using these indicators? You know, like, you know, for example, a lot of people using that Lux algo or whatever. I had a student recently using it, and I was like, get rid of this shit right now, because even I don't understand what's happening now after seeing that, you know. And then he simplified the approach, and he was like, oh, this is so much clearer. It's the simple
Yeah.
things. It's the simple
Even if
things.
I have like a ton of markups on my charts, I'll just completely remove all the drawings just to get a mental clarity and just
That's
redo it
it.
all.
That's it. There's nothing wrong with repetition.
Mm.
Repetition is what actually helps you grow and understand things a lot more clearer. People
Yeah.
need to remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, did you backtest a whole lot? Because for me, I didn't backtest essentially where I'm taking trades and watching it pan out. My form of backtesting was finding a concept and going back in time and price and studying that concept. I know you're not an ICT trader, and the audience is probably like, "This guy doesn't trade ICT. What's he doing on the podcast?" No.
Yeah,
But my form of backtesting was like finding a setup and just going back in time and studying it. And I think ICT does point out some good things where like you want to segment your days at like midnight open. But before him, honestly, nobody was talking about that. Everybody thought the day started at like 5 p.m. I mean, the candle does start at 5 p.m., but there's not a whole lot of action going on. So
yeah,
me just going back and studying like how a candle actually formed from midnight was so powerful. Like that was my form of back testing.
yeah. So, like you said, I've never looked into ICT or anything, right? Like, I've never
Mhm.
actually looked into it. I know many people that are successful in it, like yourself, right? Back testing, this is like my opinion, not from myself, but as a general view. I feel like it's very good and everybody should do it. Have I done much back testing? Like, not really. It might sound really crazy, but not really. Not like far back anyway. Like maybe last few months, yes. When's the last time I back test? It's been a long time. It's
Yeah.
been a long time. I just focus on market structure, understand what price is doing now. Are we looking at a breakout? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, what do we do here? Where do we manage our risk? Like, I try to keep it very simple now. And I think this only comes over time, right? Like, you get to a certain stage where you understand what price is doing and you have to look at fundamentals as well now. That's one thing I used to disregard a lot. I didn't look at fundamentals, and then I'll be in a trade and I'll be like, what the hell just happened? I just got wrecked on news.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh shit, it was news. But the reason that used to happen was because I was so busy with my job that I'm in trades and I'm not looking at news, but I'm working at the same time. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that was my flaw. But yeah, I recommend backtesting to everyone and journal your trades. Like, that's one thing I've started doing recently, like journaling. And I've been using TradeZella since like March and whatnot. And honestly, it's such a powerful tool.
Mhm.
And over the last few months, they've added so much more for Forex traders. Before it was more just options, but I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah. So when it comes to journaling, I always found like the biggest help was actually journaling how I felt on a specific day,
Yep.
because those emotions are really what's going to drive your process. Like if you're feeling terrible, you're not going to stick to your plan. I know that. If you're feeling angry, like if you get in a fight with somebody, you're probably going to deviate from your plan and do dumb things. So just being more, self-conscious and getting yourself out of that unconscious incompetent phase, right? Because if you get in a fight, most people's reactions is just get angry and start like yelling or pounding on something, but their subconscious brain is controlling them to do that, right? So
Yeah.
just be more mindful of how you're feeling on certain days. That's more important to me than the statistics themselves. Because
Facts.
if you have
Facts.
a great strategy, like that's going to take care of itself.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that just comes down to knowing yourself, right? Like,
Mhm.
know yourself before don't, if you don't know yourself, like, you're going to cause a lot of problems for yourself down the line. Like, this is a perfect example that you just gave now, right?
Mhm.
If you've had a bad day or whatever it may be, to just step away or, I don't know,
Yeah.
reduce the risk or something, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm better off just going outside and getting some fresh air than trying to trade. Take my frustrations out on the
Yeah.
market. So this is Noah just found the statistics for my Forex fund. So out of 10,000 traders, 1,000 passed. So that's 10%, right? Out
Yeah.
of the 1,240 passed, so that's what 24% phase two. Out of the 247.2 traders are profitable.
No
Yeah,
way. That
he's
is nuts. That is nuts. And this is my Forex funds, I'm assuming, because you mentioned my Forex
that
funds.
says he said Q4 2022.
Damn, that's just Q4 of 2022. I thought this was
Yeah.
maybe a
No,
collection
I
of.
mean, I think they publish them pretty regularly. Like, you can go and check different months and stuff, but that's pretty bad.
Oh, yeah,
I
because
mean,
yeah, that's
what
awful.
I talked to Von Zell from the Funny Trader. Shout out to Dennis if he's still in the community chat. Von Zell was like, "Listen, a lot of people are passing the challenges. They're getting funded. they just can't get to pay out. What is if you could give somebody one piece of advice to maybe flip the switch and say, all right, I'm going to start making money now, like what would you advise them to do?
Well, look, it starts with keeping like simplicity in your trading. Like, don't overcomplicate the process. So if you're trying to get a payout, you're funded now, right? Fantastic. Enjoy that you're funded, but don't start reverting back to basics of what you used to do. Because then why did you even get funded in the first place? Remember how you got funded, first of all, why you got funded, and what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So especially on your first month on the funded account, even if you've made like 0.2%, wait for that payout, get your refund. That way, you're risk free.
Mm-hmm.
You're risk free
You're
already.
doing 90. You're doing better than 99% of people out there.
There you go. So you're already in that 0.1. I was gonna say 1%, but damn, 0.1%, right?
Yeah.
So just do it. Like you everyone is capable of it. It's just when you get blinded by all this marketing bullshit, and like you said, leaderboards and oh, I can make this much money now. I have 300K funding. Like, just do yourself some justice and understand that, like, look, I'm happy with 0.5. I'm happy with 1% for that whole month. That's like $3,000 on a 300K account. Like, what you complaining about?
Listen,
Oh no, it's not.
dude, last year I was doing like 2.5 to 3% a month, and that was, that's way more than enough. You just need to get more capital. That's the thing.
That's it.
The more and more capital you have, the way better you're going to do on less. Like, you don't
honestly,
have to...
and this is one thing I'll say, and I think you can probably relate to this as well, unless you trade all your accounts exactly the same. But that's one of the main reasons I trade all of my accounts differently, right? Mm-hmm. Because let's say I'm in drawdown on okay, I've got 6 accounts, right? Let's say I'm in drawdown on 3 accounts, yeah, but I'm in profit on 3 accounts. I'm still getting payouts at the end of the month, you know? So there's nothing wrong with it. And then what do? Then I work on getting those drawdown accounts out of drawdown. Once they're all back at balance, then I start trading them, properly again. So
I mean, I guess I'm mostly, for the most part, taking the same trade across all the accounts, but because my payout schedules are all staggered now, like some accounts might go into drawdown, and then some accounts might go into payout. So the accounts that go into drawdown, all I do is just lower the risk, and I'm still taking the same trades.
That's it. Well, that's it, right? It's whatever works for you. But just remember, the more accounts you have, the more likelihood you have of making money as well. Because a lot of people just have one account.
All you got to do is just keep that first one, man.
That's it. And build a track record to yourself. Prove it to yourself. We're all in the same boat, by the way. Most people will not be able to show you a year's UmzieFX book on their funded account. They just won't. Why? Because it's so easy to blow the account with the risk, right? And a lot of people will be like, oh, but you should be able to manage risk. It's like, listen, your main goal, yes, is to manage risk, but it's also to make money. So there's nothing wrong with blowing accounts. Like, everyone needs to remember that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with blowing accounts, unless you're like that person that Angelo said, that 30 challenges in 30 days, then you're just a bit of a fucking idiot. But that's just that's it.
Oh man. All right. Well, I mean, that was some great advice. I think on that note, we're gonna close up shop here. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. You dropped gems as usual, man. I just wish you nothing but success. I'm sure I'll see you soon. So if you guys are watching, make sure you smash the likes and subscribe button and Trader Roundup. Click on the QR code for this book, Mindset. And Umzie's social links are down at the bottom. So until next time, I hope you guys all have the best weekend. Let me load this outro. And so next weekend's holiday week. Just trade safe, NFP week. Don't do anything dumb. We're not going to blow accounts, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me. And take care, and everybody else as well. Have a good day.
All right. Take care, brother.